Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Nick's Impromptu Reviews. I am Nick, and today I'm going to review Pathfinder, the adventure card game, Rise of the Runelords base set. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Well, anyways, this is basically it's a card game that is based on the Pathfinder RPG, which is very similar to Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, it uses the old 3.5 rules of Dungeons and Dragons, but that's the RPG. This is the card game that's based on the RPG. And this one, Rise of the Runelords, or the Runelords, is it's the first base set that, or the first, I guess you would call it, base adventure path that you get from this series, because I believe they're making another one later this year. Okay, it's a card-driven game. It's not like a deck building or anything like that, but there's a little bit of deck building, but basically it's a cooperative game that it's really a dungeon crawl that is driven by cards. Okay, and it's a cooperative game between 2 and 4 players, but you can have 6 players if you add the character expansion pack. And yeah, it's like a dungeon crawl, but again, it's all card driven. All right, so let's go see what this is all about. Okay, so here's a setup for a 4-player game, and it shows you in the manual on how to set it up, and this is how you set it up. Okay, so let me tell you the parts. Okay, first you have in the middle of the table you have your blessings piles, and this basically it works as a timer for your game. So once this deck runs out, you lose. Okay, so this is I'll explain that later. And here you have the scenario card, okay, and it tells you what locations to use, which villains to use, and so forth, and how to set up the initial start. Okay, so and what I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you the Angel in the Tower scenario, which is the last scenario that me and my friend did. Okay, so according to that, you set up your locations, and these are the locations: here, 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 here. In a 2-player game, you set up 4 locations, and each location it has a little like stats to show you how to set up the adventure deck. Okay, so for instance, 3 monsters, 2 barriers, a spell, and 3 blessings for this particular deck, and they're all different. They're all slightly different. And here is the adventure deck, and this represents the stuff that goes on at that location. Okay, all right, and there should be 10 cards. Well, 9 cards right now. I'll show you how I'll add the 10th card. And then you have your characters. This is the token, so this is kind of like your miniature that you're going to use to go to different locations. And this is your stats. These are your stats. Okay, and then you have your initial deck of weapons and spells and items that you're going to carry along in this adventure. And this is the dwarf. This is my dwarf, by the way. His name is Harsk. He's the ranger. And this is my nephew's druid, which is Linny. Okay, and we played the scenario last, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. All right, so after you set up your adventure decks, okay, and everything else, and also you need dice. The game comes with 5 of the essential dice, but it is highly recommended that you bring your own dice, because you will be needing a lot. So, you know, if you have dice, use it. Okay. All right. So this is the initial setup. Now, before we start, we have to pick out the villains and the henchmen. Okay, and it says so in the scenario card. All right. Let me flip it over. Okay, and as you can see up here, it has the main villain is Zanisha, the henchman is a scarecrow golem, and a couple of charm faceless stalkers. Okay, so here's what we do. We take the villains, Zanisha, and the 4 stalkers. Okay, all right, and then we're gonna shuffle these. Okay, all right. Okay, make sure they're all well mixed up, and then we are going to put 1 card in each of the 4 location decks. Okay, so 3 of these locations are going to have the henchman, but 1 is the villain, and the villain is the one we're trying to catch. That's our main goal, is to catch the villain, beat it, and make sure he or she does not escape. Okay, so once we put the the henchmen and the villains in the deck, we shuffle it again, so we don't know when they'll show up. Okay. And the thing is, the key thing is that unlike RPGs, regular RPGs, where they recommend that you never split the party, in this game you'll see that it's actually beneficial to split the party in this game. Okay, so it kind of contradicts some of the I guess the unwritten rules of RPGs. Okay, but in a nutshell, this game really is an RPG in a box driven by cards. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna get these nice and shuffled. All right, and then we're ready to go. Okay, so now we're about to start the game. Okay. Okay, so once the adventure decks have been made, the blessing deck has been created, and the scenario has been picked out, we're ready to play. Now let me reiterate the objective. The objective is to find the main villain, beat it, and make sure the main villain does not escape anywhere, and you got to do that before the blessing deck runs out. Okay? Alright, so the first thing you do, first you got to decide who goes first, and we'll have Lenny go first, okay? Alright, then the next thing you do, you're going to draw your hand size. Now, according to Lenny's stats, and all the stats are written in this card, okay, Lenny's hand size is 5, as you can see right there. Okay, so Lenny will draw 5 cards from her deck. Okay, and these character decks, there's a couple of ways you can do it. In the scenario, there's like what do you call it? They have a recommendation of what to start with, but then as your character grows, you get to keep different items and you get to tweak your deck with better items. Okay, and right now this is like I said, this is the last adventure we played off, so we probably have some pretty cool equipment and spells. All right, by now. All right, so here is her starting hand, Lenny's starting hand. Now the first thing you gotta understand, you gotta look at their card and see what their favorite card type is. Okay, and Lenny's favorite card type is an ally. So that means on their first draw, they have to have at least one ally. Otherwise, they have to draw again until they have at least one ally. In fact, right here, this hand is okay because there are 2 allies. All right. So Lenny's hand is okay. All right. So the Harsk, or me, draw my. Actually, you know what? I think I upgraded this. No, it's okay. Well, never mind. But so I draw my hand, and yes, okay, and my favorite card is a weapon, so I gotta have at least one weapon in my starting hand, and lo and behold, I have my favorite weapon right here, which is the returning throwing axe +1, and this is my totally favorite weapon, so I'm glad I got this draw. All right, so my hand is okay. All right, so once both our starting hands are legit, then we go ahead and move our characters to a location. I will go, let's say, right here, and let's have Lenny go to the temple right here. Okay, so you take your tokens and you go to a location. Okay, and you can go to the same location, it doesn't matter, but as you'll see, I think it's, I don't know, maybe there are benefits of being in the same location, but there's also a benefit of being in separate locations. I'll tell you about closing locations in a moment. Okay, so now we gotta decide who goes first. So let's say that Harsk goes first, all right? So the first thing you do on your turn, you move the blessing deck, okay? All right. Now, the blessing, it doesn't matter really. This blessing deck really doesn't matter, other than it's just a mechanism to keep track of time. There is a card which lets you use the face card, and there's some cards that kind of, the face card kind of has an effect, but generally this is just a timer. Okay, so you really don't have to pay too much attention to the blessing that's out. All right, so anyways, this is turn 1. First thing you do, you take a blessing. Second, if you're in the same location, you can give items to another character. All right. Third, you could move your character to another location, and then the 4th step, you flip over the adventure card and you deal with it. Okay. So there's no one here, so I'm not going to share any cards, and I have the option to move to another location, but you know what, I don't want to, I'm here anyway. Okay, so I've done that. So step forward, the first thing you do, we draw the first card of the adventure deck, and it's either going to be a bane or a boon. All right, And this is an ally, so that's a boon, okay? Boons are basically the stuff that benefit you. You don't have to confront it or anything, and banes are obviously like monsters and traps, okay? So this is an ally, all right? And so I get a chance to acquire this boon, all right? So let's look at the stats over here. Okay, so you got to make a check to acquire, and it gives you several different characteristics and a number, okay? And that number means you have to roll equal to or over that number. In this case, it's a 6. Using either your charisma, diplomacy, arcane, or divine. Okay? So let's see what... Okay, so I have to roll one of those with a 6. So let's look at my stats. And this is probably not a good card for me, because I'm not the most charismatic character out there. Alright, so let's see. Let me look at... I don't have any arcane, I know that. I do have a charisma... thing, but guess what? The charisma requires me to roll a d4, and so I have to, on a d4, I have to roll a 6 or more. Guess what? That's impossible, okay? So I will not be able to acquire the acolyte. So if you can't acquire a bane or a boon, then it's gone, and it's what you call banished from the game. And oh, and by the way, you should always have your extra cards handy, okay? Because there's going to be times where you'll have to, you know, like I said, banish these cards, put them back in the box, and there are times where you have to grab new cards from the cards that you're not using initially. Okay, so that was my Explorer. Now, generally you're allowed to explore once. However, there are cards that allow you to explore again. So if you look at this, especially the blessings, all right, and it says, discard this card to explore your location. Okay, so basically I can discard this card and then I can explore again. And oh, and let me tell you one thing. There are 3 types of, there are 3 ways you can use a card. Okay, first you can reveal it, like it says right here. You reveal it, all right, and you get that bonus. So basically, reveal, you show that you have the card and you keep it in your hand. You can discard a card, like what I'm going to do right here. So you take it and you discard it and put it in your discard pile. You make a discard pile for that. And there's another thing that's called recharge. Like for instance, the allying dart. It lets me recharge. And recharge, what it does, you put it on the bottom of your deck. So that's actually pretty cool. It's better than discard, because discard, basically you're losing life, okay? Like I said, did I mention this before? Your deck size, this deck is your life total, okay? If you have to draw a card and you can't because your deck is out, you're dead, okay? So your deck is your life. So to recharge it, it's pretty cool. You get to put it on the bottom of your deck so you don't lose any life, basically. Okay? Alright, so we have this card, we have reveal, we have recharge, and the one thing was banish, okay? There's some cards where they tell you to banish it and basically it's out of the game. Alright? So, okay, where do we go? Okay, so I'm going to discard the blessing and I'm going to explore again. So, I have these cards in my hand. Hopefully I'll find a monster. Okay, a flaming mace. Alright? So let's look at that. So a weapon, allies, those are boons, and I have to roll a strength or a melee of 11 or more. So this is probably to acquire this. So this is probably better for me because I do have, actually, you know what? I don't have enough. Okay, my strength, believe it, even though I'm a dwarf, this is kind of like a ranger dwarf, which is kind of weird. But yeah, he's not that strong. He's more of a finesse dwarf, if that ever makes sense. All right. Okay. Well, anyways, that's the one I had the opportunity to acquire. But let's sort of alter things a bit. All right. Let's see how. Let's encounter a bane. All right. So let's say I encounter. Here we go. So instead of that flaming, let's say I encounter a monster. Okay. And monsters and traps are banes. Okay. And you're pretty much basically going to be looking at the cards upper right hand corner with the card sense. Okay, so this is a monster. Obviously you have to fight it, and that means a combat of 9. So if I have a combat, my combat skill, I have to roll 9 or more. Okay, also you got to read what's on the bottom. Oh, I forgot one more thing. Okay, if undefeated, bury one item or weapon from your discard pile. I forgot about bury. Now bury is it's another way to use your card. Okay, basically what you're doing, you're taking your card and you're putting it in the back of your stat sheet, and you cannot use that card this adventure. You'll be able to keep it though for your next adventure if you survive, but for this adventure, it goes back, all right? But it's, you know, it's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as Banish. Banish means you lose it forever, okay? So, you know, I guess that's not a bad deal. All right, so let's see. All right, so like I showed you, the Goblin has a combat of 9. So now I'm going to look at my combat skill, okay? If I have a combat skill. If you don't have a combat skill, you can use your strength of a D4. Okay, so anyways, okay, well, actually, let me show you the weapon that I'm going to use. So I look at my hand, all right, and normally weapons will give you a combat check, okay? And this one gives me a cool combat check. All right, so for your combat check, which is what I'm doing right now, reveal this card to roll your dexterity or range dice plus a d8 plus 1, okay? So, remember what that said, all right? And let's look at my dexterity or ranged, okay? All right, my dexterity is a d8, all right? But check this out, my range dexterity, my range is dexterity plus 2. So I'm gonna use my range, it's better, because it's a d8 plus 2. If I use my just straight up dexterity, it'll be just a d8, okay? Well, actually, wait, what is that? dx plus 3, or d8 plus 3, all right? So, let's look back at this. So it gives me a d8, it gives me the dexterity dice, which is a d8 plus 3, plus another d8 plus 1. So, I basically get 2d8. All right, so this is where you sort of sort your dice out, and this is why you need a lot of dice. I have 2d8, and remember, I have a plus 4, and what I usually do, I usually just take an extra die, and I just put it face up of the plus bonus I have in order to roll. So, plus 4, I have to roll 2 dice, over 9, plus 4, so the chances of me beating that goblin are pretty good. I roll it, 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 4 is 14. All right, I smashed a goblin, okay? So it's banished. I put it back in the box, and that is it. I beat the goblin. Okay, so that's probably the end of my turn. All right, so at the end of your turn, first of all, you look at your hand, okay? And you draw, and you have the opportunity to exchange your cards, basically, for something out of the deck. So I can discard any of these items and then draw up to my hand size. You always have to draw up to your hand size, okay? So if I don't like any of these cards, I can discard them and draw up to my hand size new cards. But like I said, your deck is your life, all right? So maybe if you discard too much, you're gonna die, okay? I know it sounds pretty weird, but it's actually a pretty neat mechanic if you ask me. But anyways, I'm gonna decide to keep this. My hand size is 5, so I have to draw one more. Bam. And it's the bastard sword, okay? So good, now I have 2 weapons in my hand. All right, so now it is Lenny's turn, all right? First thing they do, we advance the blessing pile, all right? And she can exchange items, but there's no one here. And she can move to another location, but she doesn't want to. She'll stay over here. Oh, and also, locations, some have special abilities, but I'm going to forego it right now, but you can read the location, they give you a special ability sometimes, or a disadvantage or whatever, okay? But anyways, here we go. All right, so there's a blessing. This is a boon, and I need an intelligence, arcane, or divine to acquire it. Let's look at Lenny's stats. And blessings are good. They give you like a little buff, okay? And wait, what was the intelligence, arcane, and divine? Okay, so intelligence of 6. Oh, divine is wisdom, so it's D10 plus 1, all right? So we'll go ahead with the D10 plus 1, all right? Okay, roll D, and I have to roll a 5 or more. 4 plus 1 is 5, so I barely get it. And I get to put this, or she gets to put it in her hand, okay? All right. All right, so that was their turn. Now they can go again, but here's, I'm not gonna go in just to show you something. All right, so like I said before, you have to draw up to your hand size, but you also must discard down to your hand size, okay? So if you, and right now Lenny's hand size is 5, I have 6 cards, so I have to discard 1, okay? So it made it be a good idea to, you know, explore again, so why don't we go ahead and do that. and it's another blessing, and I get the opportunity to acquire it, and that's what you pretty much do during your turns. Okay, so let me try to speed up a bit. Alright, so when I'm going to speed up a bit, let's go ahead and fast forward a few steps, okay? So that's all you keep doing. You fight monsters, you explore, draw cards, fight monsters. Now eventually, in your decks, you're going to run into the henchmen, okay? Remember the henchmen and the villains that we put in? We don't know where the villain is, and we don't know where the henchmen are, but we know they're in there somewhere. Okay, so let's say that Harsk goes ahead and draws the henchman, okay? So this is the Scarecrow Golem. Alright, you may not play spells with the attack trait. If defeated, you may immediately attempt to close this location. They usually, all the henchmen, you'll be able to close the location. I'll tell you about that later. But first, we have to fight it, okay? So, to fight this one, combat at 12. Alright. I'll go ahead and reveal my throwing axe. I still have it in my hand. So that was a D8 plus, what was it? D8 plus 4. Okay, so I have to roll D8 plus 4, 12 or more. Okay, so I'm about average. Ooh, 9. Alright, actually this is a good example. Okay, so I rolled a 9. That is not over 12, so here's what happens. So, this thing beat me by 3. Okay, so what happens is that I immediately have to discard 3 cards, okay? So it's pretty good that I lost this one to show you how you lose life. So I'll take, let me see, 1, 2, and let's say 3. Okay, so I'll have to discard 3. And like I said, your cards are your life, so I really lost 3 life, okay? Alright, well, let's cheat a bit, okay? Alright, so that's how you take damage, okay? Another thing, let's cheat a little bit. Let's say I did beat this thing. Okay? Alright, so let's say, oh yeah, there we go. 9 plus 4, 13. So I did beat it. Okay, let's say I did beat this thing. Alright, so now, since I defeated it, I may attempt to close this location. Alright, so closing the location, this is what you have to do. You look at the location, and you have to do, it gives you a closing condition. So when closing, it gives you a condition on how to close it. So in this case, I have to summon and defeat a bandit henchman. Alright, so since I beat this, now I have to go ahead and fight a bandit. And so I go back to my card stock, okay, my stockpile of cards, and I draw the bandit. And as you can see, the bandit is combat of 8. Alright, however, I must immediately recharge a card. So, if you look at my hand right here, I have to take one of these cards and I have to recharge it. Okay, no big deal. I'll recharge this. And like I said, recharging, just put it on the bottom of your deck. Alright, D8 plus, so I show my axe again. Alright, D8 plus 4, or 2D8 plus 4. Bam, I destroyed that bandit. Okay, so I met the closing requirement. So what happens is that this location is now closed. Alright? So the villain won't be able to escape there. Okay, so let's fast forward again. Alright, so after we close that thing, so that location is no longer a place for the villain to escape. You can go there and rest, but you know, there's really no purpose. So let's move Harsk over here, okay, to this location. Alright, so once we got out of the way, that's how henchman works. So if you beat a henchman, you have the opportunity to close the location. I'll tell you why it's important to close the location. All right, so let's here, let me see this deck. Ah, perfect. All right, so let's say that. All right, that we encounter the main villain. Okay. All right, so like I said, one of these things has a villain. Let's say Lenny encounters the villain here. All right. Okay, when you encounter a villain, the first thing you can do is you have the opportunity to close a location that you're at. Okay, so Harsk can close this location by, if you look at this requirement right here, succeed at a divine 6 check or banish a blessing. Okay, he doesn't have a divine skill, so he won't be able to beat it. However, he might be able to banish a blessing. Okay. So let's see. Oops, what is this? Did I mix the decks up? Probably did. But Oh, here we go. All right, so banish a blessing. Okay, so actually, I forgot to draw a card. Oh, as luck would have it. All right, so I can go ahead and banish this blessing. In other words, remove it from the game and temporarily close this. Okay, and I'll show you why it's good to temporarily close it. All right, so what happens is that that place, the villain can not escape there. All right, so let's go ahead and fight this thing. All right. Okay, now this one has several stats. Okay, it has a okay, you use wisdom or combat, and then you got to beat it at combat at 17. I don't know how Lenny's gonna be able to do that. Let me see. And you know what? I'm not familiar with Lenny's powers, so I'm sure there's a way to beat it. All right, but for argument's sake, let's go ahead and say that. All right, yeah, okay, so this one you have to beat it twice. To say that she beat it with the wisdom, and for whatever reason she beat it with the combat of 17. All right, if you lose the battle, okay, if you lose the battle, then what happens is that you take the damage, all right, and they get to escape, okay, and I'll show you how they escape. So if they escape, what you do, if you beat it and they escape, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna go to a location that's not closed. Okay, so in this case, let's say that Lenny did beat Zanisha. Okay, all right, she can't go there because it's closed. This was temporarily closed, so she can't go there. So she has to escape over there, and she gets shuffled into that deck. Okay, and remember, there's another henchman there. All right. And also, if you beat the villain, you're allowed to. If you beat the villain, you automatically close the location. Okay. So if she did beat it, she closed that location. All right. Okay. Now suppose, for whatever reason, this location didn't get closed. All right. And Lenny beats Zanisha. Okay. Zanisha can either go escape here or here because they're both open. So the way you do it, if you beat it, you grab a blessing card, so you can have enough cards for each location, open location. There are 2 locations, and then you shuffle it. And if you beat it, you create a blessing card from the stockpile. If you know, you get a blessing card from your timer, and that's not good. That means you're losing time. So if you lose, all right. So go ahead and shuffle these, and we'll put the blessing. We don't know which one's the blessing, which one's the one. We're gonna put them randomly into either one of those piles. So you basically narrowed it down to these, so you don't know which one it is. Okay, and remember, the idea is not just to beat the villain, but you have to beat it and make sure it doesn't escape anywhere else. Okay. So if let's say if this location was closed, and this location was temporarily closed, and Lenny beats the villain, well, she beat the villain, she can't escape anywhere, you win the scenario. Okay, so that's why it's kind of important to go ahead and close the locations. Okay, all right, and so yeah, you keep doing that. You go to every location, encounter the decks, beat the henchmen, beat the monsters, and try to find the villain. Okay, and when you find it, you gotta beat. So the object is to beat it and make sure you close every other location. Okay, and if you beat it and the villain cannot escape, you win the scenario. Okay, so yeah, that's how you play the game. Like I said, you go around, you gotta encounter the locations, try to find the villain and beat it and make sure it doesn't escape. All right. Now, before I end this gameplay, let me just tell you about the few recommendations for this game. Okay, first of all, you have a base scenario that's in the rules, and you also get Adventure Deck 1, okay, which is the second adventure, or the second adventure. All right. Now these scenarios, they can link up into adventures, and these adventures, they can lead up to Adventure Pass, which is a massive campaign. Okay, now as I record this, they don't even have all the adventures out to complete the first adventure path, all right? But there's a lot of stuff, okay? Now, what's not in the game that you have to buy separately, first of all, there is the character add-on pack, and it's highly recommended. Initially, you can only play with 4 players because there's only 4 characters. This one adds new characters, and it allows you to play with 6 players, 5 or 6 players. Okay, so this is highly recommended. And also, I went ahead and bought all the available adventures. Okay, 2, 3, and 4. Right now, we just completed 2, so me and my friend or my nephew, we're gonna go ahead and play 3 and 4 next time. All right, so we're pretty pumped up about that. And like I said, also you need more dice, okay, because you'll be rolling a lot of dice. And I believe there's some adventure mats available also, and I don't know, I might go ahead and buy some of those. But yeah, that's about it, okay. And like I said, you go ahead and you can play scenarios. You can play several scenarios to make up an adventure, and you can play several adventures to make up the adventure path, the big campaign. And hopefully we'll beat it soon. Okay, so as you beat adventures, your character gets to acquire more weapons, and your deck gets a little better. Okay, and also all the weapons and items that you've acquired, you'll be able to replace them in your deck with your lesser stuff. Okay, because you start out with the real basic items like just a regular dagger, regular sword, regular armor, regular this. But then as you beat adventures and go on through adventures, you'll start acquiring more weapons and items and stuff. And also you'll be able to get rewards after you complete each scenario. And it could be like a stat boost, or a power boost, or increased hand size, or whatever. So you'll see your character progress after every scenario you beat. Alright, so just like a regular RPG, that's what an RPG is all about, is you'll see character growth, okay? And that's pretty good for a long campaign. As you can see in that last example, I had a lot of magic weapons, and I have that magic throwing axe, which is totally cool. I love it for my Dwarf Ranger. So yeah, it's pretty neat to see your character grow, get stronger, because as just like in any RPG, you get to face harder adventures as your character gets stronger. And that's pretty much what it is. Okay, this is an RPG in a box. Okay, this is probably one of the hottest games out right now. It's very popular. When it first came out, I think Paizo, they wanted to see how well it did, and it really caught fire. Copies were flying off the shelves, and yeah, and everyone was buying the adventure packs. And I picked this up at the last Strategicon back in February during President's Day weekend, and I remember when I picked it up, and as I was carrying it to the game room, everyone was saying, "Oh wow, that game is so awesome! That game is so awesome!" So I was really hyped to play this game. Well, I went ahead and during that day, I opened up and I was playing the solo adventure. I said, I see where this is going. I understand why. And basically, so I played the solo version. I learned the rules. I played with a buddy of mine, and we got hooked. Yeah, this game is pretty addicting. Really, it's an RPG in a box, okay, and without the GM. And I'm not a big RPG player. I understand the appeal of RPGs, and I will try it occasionally, but I just think that the maintenance of getting a good GM, getting the right mix of players, like-minded players who play a certain way, whether they're hardcore, they're casual, or whatever, trying to get the right mix of players, I think it's just too high maintenance to get a good adventure, and it takes a long time. But this pretty much solves it all. It's like I said, it's card-driven. You don't need a GM. And nothing's going to replace an RPG. So yeah, are you RPGers out there? No, I'm not saying that this is a replacement. Okay, but it's a good alternative for people who don't really play RPGs, and it's something light. I mean, you can get a scenario done in about an hour, and you can get an adventure path in a few hours. But again, it's a very addictive game. Yeah, and the thing is, what do you call it? The adventures, I think it's pretty fresh. I mean, when the characters that you have, and I highly recommend getting the expansion pack because you get more character classes and everything, they have a different feel, okay? And I think that the way they use cards as your life, as your life total, I think that's a real, if you think about it, it's a real ingenious balance, because the more cards you have in your hand, yeah, I mean, you'll have more options to play. Okay. However, if you have more cards in your hand, you always got to have that hand size. Your health is less, so that makes it like the Magic users who have like a big hand size. Their health naturally, their deck is going to be short. So you know how it is. You know, they're not as strong as the fighters. While the fighters, they only have like 4 or 5 cards in their hands, and so but their health is, you know, they have a bigger draw deck, so their health is more. And you know, that's I think that's a pretty good balance thing. And but anyways, yeah, this really is an RPG in a box. Okay, and I love breaking out with my friends. It's one of the better cooperative games that I've played. And I think it gives you a good feel of dungeon crawling. You know, going in there looking for the villain, getting loot. And the thing is, it's not that overpowering. You know, and I've heard in the Pathfinder RPG the heroes are overpowered. It's not that. I think it has a pretty good balance. Yeah, there are some occasions where it'll be easy to go through, but you know, it's still pretty fun. Okay, so potential drawbacks of this, and I say potential because so far I like pretty much everything about this game, but a potential drawback, I guess that I don't know about the replayability of certain sets, okay, because like I said, this is a campaign, and it has a set adventure. You can't make your custom adventures. I mean, I guess you can if you're smart enough, but you know, there's really no custom adventures. There's no way to make like a template where you can make custom adventures. So if you play if you play the same adventure at the same time, it might get repetitive. However, I do see it like, I mean, I don't mind playing this adventure again with a different character just to get a different feel or a different perspective. But it seems like there is a potential of lack of replayability. Okay, and maybe that's why they're releasing another base set in August with a different adventure like this. Okay, so right now they're releasing like adventure packs bi-monthly, and as I'm recording this, they're up to number 4, but 5 is coming out real soon, Adventure Pack 5, and there's going to be a 6th one that'll cap the entire adventure. So I don't know. There is a potential of having a lack of replayability. Okay, if that makes sense. Another thing, and this is not really a big thing, people complain like, okay, you go through an adventure and the rewards aren't that great, okay? Like the end reward is not that great. You have to pick like a random armor or whatever, and suppose you pick something bad. Oh, wow, that adventure was nothing, you know? Because usually at the end of a scenario, you get only one thing, okay? You either get a power boost, a skill, or an item, okay? Just one. So if that one thing is not what you want, I mean, skills are always good to get, but if it's a card and that one thing you randomly draw is not what you want, it can kind of be a bummer. It feels like, well, what happened? Well, you have to go to the next adventure at least. So I don't think it's a big problem, but I see it could be a little bit of a problem. And another thing from what I've heard, and this is strictly from the RPGers, this doesn't give the same feel of an RPG. They think it's too easy or whatever, not enough tactics. But you know what? It's simple enough. And I was totally wrong about this. When I first heard about this, I thought it was a deck building game like Dominion with a fantasy theme. So first thing I was thinking, Thunderstone. But it's not. It's really an RPG in a box. And I like it. All right, so with that, I will give Pathfinder Adventure Card Game Rise of the Runelords a solid 8 out of 10. Okay, it's a really good. It's one of my favorite new games, probably one of my favorite cooperative games, and I hope that they keep making these. All right, because this is really fun, and I really like it. All right, that is it. So until next time, I will see you all later. Goodbye.